Just let it in.
It's a Star Wars show, and I'm your host, Jon Justice. Glad you are with another episode. As always, you can email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com, if you want to discuss all things from a galaxy far, far away. And of course, if you're enjoying this on YouTube, you can leave a comment there as well. We have a lot of your listener feedback this week to dive into. And we're going to talk about Ahsoka Season 2 wrapping up its filming, teasing big things. But for those of us who are fans of Ahsoka, and I am an unabashed Ahsoka show, live-action show, Ahsoka in general, fan, some things we kind of already expected relating to Ahsoka. But let's work off of this article as we talk about Sabine Wren and the actress celebrating the Ahsoka Season 2 wrap-up, sharing a behind-the-scenes picture, which might actually feature a major Star Wars Easter egg. And as I mentioned, this, of course, is something that, for those of us that enjoyed the show, watched the ending of Season 1, we kind of had already anticipated. So, again, I'm working off of an article based from YouTube, wherein they say Ahsoka Season 2 is wrapped filming. Sabine Wren star Natasha Lee Bordizio has celebrated the occasion with a behind-the-scenes picture, which might just feature a major Star Wars tease. And again, if you were paying attention, though, you should know that this is where we are heading. And as for this journey, ... she captioned the picture. This will be Natasha. It only gets more epic. Now, this was posted to her Instagram story. It features a silhouette of her as Sabine beside Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka Tano, identifiable by, of course, the distinctive pointy l'écu, which are the things on her head for those that aren't aware. But if you look closely, you're going to spot the major Easter egg for the Mortis gods, which could relate to the world between worlds. Well, we already know we've visited the world between worlds in Ahsoka Season 1. We know that at the end of Season 1, we certainly saw the mountain statues relating to the Mortis gods. And so the expectation was, not knowing exactly how this will obviously transpire, that Ahsoka Season 2 will be telling somewhat of an extended story relating to the Mortis gods and the Star Wars Clone Wars. And we'll get to this in just a moment as the article references. The Mortis gods were introduced in the Clone Wars, as I was mentioning, represent different aspects of the Force, and they can be found on murals relating to the world between worlds in Star Wars Rebels. And again, the world between worlds was seen in Season 1, Episode 5, when Snips faces off against her old master, Anakin Skywalker, one of my favorite episodes of the series. My only criticism of that particular episode is it's the one episode that does not include Sabine, and she was probably my favorite character in the Ahsoka series. As one fan on Reddit spotted, the positioning of Bordizo, I think I'm saying that wrong, I'm adding in an extra I. The positioning of Bordizzo's and Dawson's hands bears a resemblance to the painting of the Mortis gods as seen on the Lothal Temple, Jedi Temple in Rebels. Now, the actress for Sabine posted this pic on the last day on the set, and there is something very familiar about their poses, writes the Reddit comment. Again, at the end of Ahsoka Season 1, it looked like Baylan Skoll, it looked like Baylan Skoll was seeing a power related to these gods after he was last seen standing on the statue of the Father, who represents the balance of the Force. A statue of the daughter, the light side, and the one of the son, the dark side, could also be seen, although the daughter, her head was actually missing. Now, the first piece of concept art shared for Season 2 saw Sabine and Ahsoka standing on the same father statue as well. It's a big mystery, Filoni teased of the statues on Paradia as Star Wars Celebration earlier this year. The son's there, the father's there, most of the daughter's there, so yeah, we'll figure it out. It's a good story. Now, also at Celebration, Filoni had revealed that Admiral Akbar would make a comeback to face off against Grand Admiral Thrawn, while the Game of Thrones star Rory McCain would be taking over the role of Baylan from the late Ray Stevenson. And I actually saw the first, I believe, sort of production photo was a promo picture of Rory McCain playing Baylan Skoll, and he looks the part. Now, this could have been fan-made, but I saw it recently, and I was fairly confident, or I am fairly confident, that that was an official picture. Now, Hayden Christensen himself confirmed that Anakin will return. There was even a sort of trailer-made concept art and retro-style voiceover teasing battles across two galaxies. In short, it looks like Bordizzo is correct to call it epic. Now, Ahsoka Season 2 does not have a release date yet. Next up is, of course, The Mandalorian and Grogu, and that'll release on the big screen next May on the 22nd. Now, I'm excited. As I mentioned, I'm an unabashed Ahsoka live-action fan. It's probably my favorite live-action series that they've produced. It has the similar sort of quality issues relating to the production, although not nearly as egregious as, say, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, but certainly not as good as the first season of The Mandalorian, of which I just did a recent rewatch. But I really felt that the Ahsoka live-action show encapsulated everything that I love about Star Wars. It has the lore, it has the Jedi, it has the dark side, you have your space battles, your ships, you have the return of Anakin Skywalker, we get a young Ahsoka. I mean, top to bottom, I just absolutely love that series. And what I'm probably most excited about for Season 2, because I don't think we'll be getting a Season 3. There still is a lot of speculation that the Ahsoka show would end up leaning into or lead into a final film, which would culminate the finale of the Mando-verse set of stories. There's a lot more detail and lore relating to Star Wars that we got in Ahsoka than we did in The Mandalorian. While The Mandalorian was obviously more focused on the history of the Mandalore. I don't expect much different coming out of The Mandalorian and Grogu. I am excited within The Mandalorian and Grogu to see if they end up having any sort of references to the Ahsoka series. But again, we don't know where in the Ahsoka series is going to drop. I'm going to guess after The Mandalorian and Grogu, just because we are coming up on the end of the year, and if this was going to be airing at the beginning of the year, I kind of feel like we would have already heard about the release of Ahsoka Season 2. But getting back to my point, I'm excited for Ahsoka Season 2 from the standpoint of you're a little bit more cautious on the first seasons. I think that's certainly the case when you look at Mandalorian Season 2, where they opened things up a bit and took more risks. While it didn't pay off, in my opinion, and a lot of the fans' opinions relating to The Mandalorian Season 3, when you have Dave Filoni at the helm, and he's probably my favorite Star Wars creator, content developer, next to George Lucas, mostly because he was mentored by George Lucas, that I feel like Dave Filoni's really going to have the opportunity to bring it if they've greenlighted a Season 2. Now, my understanding was Ahsoka Season 1 didn't do great in terms of the viewership. That being said, the fact that they did greenlight the Season 2 at least tells me that, one, they definitely want to complete the story, seeing that it was left on a cliffhanger and Ahsoka and Sabine were left off in another galaxy. But again, I think it speaks to the quality of the storytelling that we're going to get. So, of all the Star Wars projects coming up next to Star Wars Starfighter, which we still don't know much details apart from what we've covered on the show and what's been released minimally of some of the production photos, Ahsoka Season 2 is probably my most anticipated Star Wars project coming up. I reserve the right to change my opinion once I see more from Star Wars Starfighter. And again, I'm looking forward to The Mandalorian and Grogu, but I have very low expectations. I'm expecting that to be just a Indiana Jones style fun adventure, a ride that we get to go on, but not anything that is going to be meaty that we as fans can chew on. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope it is, but my expectation is that it's not going to be that. Again, it's just going to be more of a Star Wars adventure romp with The Mandalorian and Grogu. As always, what do you think? Drop me an email, talkshownerd@gmail.com, or leave a comment up on YouTube. And many of you did this past week as we immediately dive into your listener feedback. We'll start off with Across the Stars, who writes in saying, I would absolutely love for there to be another Blood Skywalker, but I just don't see Kathleen Kennedy allowing Luke to have a kid and it not be a girl. Interesting. This, of course, goes back to the speculation that I presented last week that perhaps the young protagonist in Star Wars Starfighter, or do we say Star Wars Starfighter? That he could potentially be Luke's son and that Amy Adams' character is playing Mara Jade. I think times have changed within Disney and Lucasfilm, and the tropes of, making the characters female and going the more woke route. I'm under the impression that that's probably given way back to let's just tell a good story and let's, make sure that we're just picking the right characters to play the right roles and not just choosing genders for the sake of doing so. Plus, I think that Kathleen Kennedy's time at Lucasfilm is coming to a close within the next year or so. But Across the Stars, thank you for the comment. Now we go to friend of the show, Star Wars Santa. Be sure to check out his channel up on YouTube. He writes, a big issue with having Amy Adams be Mara Jade is explaining her absence in the stories leading up to The Force Awakens through the sequel trilogy and following. And if the boy ends up being Luke's son, then there's tons of criticism about Luke being on Ahsoka. I just think it opens up a huge can of worms for fans to fight about. I see your point, Santa. At the same time, fans are going to complain anyways. And, as far as having to explain where she's been, I think that's easy. If she does have the son of Luke, and up until this point, if the rumors are true that the story will revolve around Ryan Gosling's character taking this boy to Rey, regardless of whether or not he's Luke's son, I think it's easy to sort of explain that perhaps Mara Jade, for example, if we're going down that road, was simply staying away in the wake of everything happening because she was protecting her son. Like poetry, it rhymes, like Luke on Tatooine. But again, fans are always going to complain. But Santa, I always appreciate your comments. Thanks for writing in. Next up, Ray 2017 says, I'm going to be upfront. I'm stunned that people are even able to find leaks surfacing, and the movie is still 2 years away and has only gotten a couple of months of filming in. It's astounding, and it makes me uncomfortable of what kind of discourse is going to come out before there's even one preview. I'm a little fearful of it, much like how there was a lot of backlash that erupted during episode 9, specifically during the time after the Hollywood premiere, when people were posting spoilers about what happened in the end. Even people that didn't see the film yet were posting spoilers like crazy. That was insane, and I'm very concerned something like that is going to happen again during Starfighter and The Mandalorian and Grogu, because people just can't control themselves. They are selfish and they have no consideration. But it's also the pop culture fandom that we live in. I hate to be the contrarian to the listener feedback this week, but it's just the world that we live in, relating to how people receive the information and how they love to share it and want to be the first to go and share particular spoilers. I think the best advice I could give, since you're not asking, is to just do your best to avoid the spoilers. And I'll certainly try to keep you up to speed here and shield you from anything I might learn and make sure that I notate that before I go and mention any spoilers on the show. Got a comment that came in from at Captain Hindsight, who says, I'm speaking as a super consistent Disney Star Wars, no exceptions, not even for The Mandalorian and Andor, hater since 2014, when they announced that the EU would be discontinued. And then when they announced that the cast and no one there looked like he could be Luke's son. Adding Luke's son post-sequel trilogy is the one thing that they could do to get me interested in Disney Star Wars. Thank you, Captain Hindsight, for that. That is an interesting take. I cannot relate to that. I understand fans' frustration and those that grew up reading the EU, the Expanded Universe, now Legends. But again, to each their own. For me personally, I just love Star Wars too much to take that approach. But again, to each their own. All right, let's go. And we've got an email, talkshownerd@gmail.com. Lewis in Kentucky writes, It's been a few years since I wrote you. Please know that I listen to your podcast weekly and have always been a fan. Thank you very much for that. My last message was about the possibility of a Mara Jade appearance in the Disney shows. Then I see your podcast from this past week that Amy Adams' character in the upcoming film could be Mara Jade. Not only would this be great for the franchise, but Amy Adams is a great choice to play her. Mara is an iconic character from the Timothy Zahn books, of course. She has a fantastic redemption story. I'm hopeful she'll be brought into canon. I'm like a kid on Christmas Eve waiting to unwrap a gift. Please let it be our favorite gingered hair Jedi. Thanks as always for being a positive force in the Star Wars fandom. Pun intended, Lewis in Kentucky. Thank you, Lewis. I very much appreciate that. There was a lot of speculation for a long period of time that George Lucas hated the character Mara Jade, but my understanding is that's been completely dispelled at this point in time, and that none of those rumors were actually true. All right, next up, let's go here. Hey, John, I hope you and your family are well, and hello to the fellow My Nerd World listeners. I actually like this idea of Flynn Gray and Amy Adams being related to Luke Skywalker. This actually fits with a fan concept story I was thinking about a few years ago. Mara Jade is presented as a type of inquisitor selected by the Emperor, similar to the whole Emperor's Hand assassin that she was in the novels. Through whatever storyline, she is brought to the light by Luke, and eventually they fall in love. Shortly before the time of the Ben Solo and Luke Skywalker incident, leading into Ben's turning, she finds out she's pregnant. Between the combination of fear of a possible growing dark side in the distance and her concern over Luke being distracted with his future offspring to properly train the new Jedi, she leaves without telling Luke. Mara, just up and leaving, doesn't help Luke's mental state as the story continues leading up to when he goes to first to strike down a young Ben Solo. She's in hiding, gives birth. We could have some adventures watching Luke's son and daughter grow up, possibly as a comic series or novel. And then, to tie it together, years later, Mara and a young Skywalker approach a slightly more seasoned Rey and her newly formed Jedi Order and ask for help. End credits. I wish I would have a non-disclosure agreement handy, yada, yada, yada. But that was a story that I've been thinking about a few years ago to tie Mara Jade into existing canon. So yes, I'm cool with a possible Mara Jade and child being introduced. Now, they go on to write, and this is friend of the show, Howard Kemple. I had talked about... Oh, actually, my apologies. This actually goes into my Depeche Mode podcast territory. So I'm going to move this particular portion of Howard's email over to that podcast, which I'll be recording here shortly. He does wrap up with this. As always, I hope you and your family and fellow Nerd World listeners are doing well. But that's just my thought and ideas. As always, thanks for the years of Star Wars podcasting. I hope all continues well for you and your family. May the force be with you. Very respectfully, Howard Kemple Jr. Thank you, Howard. It is always great to hear from you. And I'm going to slide over your email right now to the email portion and the listener feedback portion of my Depeche Mode podcast, since it's more relevant for those conversations. Listen, that wraps up the show for this week. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Again, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com, or leave a comment up on YouTube as well. And of course, before I let you go today, if you have not had the opportunity to go and check out my science fiction space opera series, EMBARK, I hope you will go and do that. Available on Amazon.com. Treat yourself, a friend, or a family member with science fiction, which I know that you love. I wrote the series, 7 books in all, for adults, but it is absolutely completely age appropriate in terms of no language and the violence, very much like Star Wars. For those 11 and older, if you haven't done so, pick up EMBARK Book 1 today. If you have picked up EMBARK Book 1 or any of the other books in the series and you have not left a review, please go and do so. Whether you've enjoyed the books via Kindle Unlimited, ebook, hardcover, paperback, or audiobook, whatever version, I hope you'll go and take a moment and leave a review. But if you have not picked up my science fiction space opera series yet, I hope you will. Do not miss out on this fun, fast-paced, and action-packed science fiction space opera adventure without an agenda. If you like your science fiction space opera to be epic, filled with romance, unique action sequences of which I take a lot of pride in, some romance, then EMBARK is perfect. EMBARK is perfect for you. Again, head on over to Amazon.com or, well, just head on over to Amazon.com because I'm not using my nerdworld.net anymore. And search for EMBARK, EMBARK, and Jon, Jon Justice. All right, I look forward to hearing from you between now and next week. Thank you so much for listening, and I do hope wherever you are, you're happy, you're healthy, you're safe. God bless to you and yours, and I'll talk to you in about a week. Have a great one. Bye.
The Force will be with you, always.
My Nerd World.